Powered by Riverside FM.
The free agency frenzy has started. This is like Christmas. For those of you that are NFL enthusiasts, this is a great day. This is going to be a day that's going to answer a lot of questions. This is going to be a day to find out who goes where, the value of personnel, kind of the philosophy of the team, what direction the team is going. Like, I've been waiting for this day for the Minnesota Vikings. And so the free agency frenzy has just gotten started. It's looking like the Raiders are going to be making a push for Byron Murphy Jr. That's the word from Tayshaun Reed, who covers the Vikings for The Athletic. Reed says Murphy is at the top of the Raiders list. That would make a lot of sense for the Las Vegas Raiders. They're pretty thin at quarterback. They need someone to come in and bolster that secondary. Byron Murphy Jr. is going to cost you roughly at least $20 million. The Raiders can afford that. I think they're going to make a push for Byron Murphy Jr. I think it makes sense. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some sort of an announcement that Byron Murphy Jr. is a Las Vegas Raider within the next 48 hours. I just think it makes sense. Another Minnesota Viking, the Broncos seem to be targeting Cam Bynum, my guy, Cam Beasley. Bynum appears unlikely to return to the Minnesota Vikings. They gave Theo Jackson a new contract this past week. You know, another team that is looking for the services of a Cam Bynum is Denver Broncos. Again, another spot that makes sense. And, you know, we're getting all this insight from Mike Chris reporting. You know, he covers the Broncos, and he said that the Broncos have expressed interest in Cam Beasley. And I think that's another spot that makes sense. The Broncos are looking for a smart, high IQ safety. And I think Cam Beasley would fit that. I think he's just a little bit like Byron Murphy Jr. I just think he's a little bit too expensive for the Minnesota Vikings. I would love to have both those guys back, but I think the market is going to dictate what the market is going to dictate. And, you know, and this is what the free agency frenzy is all about. It's like you got to juggle, if you're the player, culture, you know, environment, being comfortable, along with getting your bag. And more times than not, the bag is going to win out. And I think you're going to see that in a lot of these cases. And I don't blame these guys for trying to get their money. You know, but when you get emotionally attached to some of these players, Byron Murphy Jr., Cam Beasley, you just hate to see him go. Let's talk a little bit of Aaron Rodgers. We got to talk a little bit of Aaron Rodgers. So far, it looks like, you know, after reporters were in lockstep Saturday that Minnesota could turn to Aaron Rodgers, the latest from my guy Adam Schefter is that Rodgers to the Steelers is in play. Meanwhile, Albert Beer has said the Giants are Rodgers' most likely destination, while the Vikings could be lurking if they don't sign Daniel Jones. Let's talk about the Daniel Jones thing for a minute. I think Daniel Jones should return to the Vikings. That would be my vote. But I think Daniel Jones got a little bit of glimpse and has an idea of what the Minnesota Vikings want to do with J.J. McCarthy in terms of bringing him back as the starter. And I think Daniel Jones, although I'm sure he likes the culture in Minnesota, I'm sure he will get a little bit bigger of a contract in Indianapolis. I think he looks at the Richardson deal over there with him being their starting quarterback. And I think he's looking at both sides of the coin thinking, okay, where am I most likely to play? Where am I most likely to have a really, really good situation? And I think it would be the Colts. So I think ultimately, although I hope I'm wrong about this, although I hope Daniel Jones comes back to the Minnesota Vikings, because I think he would be a heck of a backup. And I think, with KOC being able to rehab some of these veteran quarterbacks, I think long term it would be a great situation for Daniel Jones. But I know Daniel Jones wants to be a starting quarterback again, and I think the fastest, quickest route to that would be to go to Indianapolis. So I'm hoping I'm wrong. If Daniel Jones goes to Indianapolis, if he chooses to play for the Colts, what are the options for the Minnesota Vikings in terms of backup quarterbacks? I don't want to hear the name Nick Mullins anymore. I'm over that. Where do they go to get a competent veteran in the room? Again, you're stuck with having all of these pieces in place in terms of the Minnesota Vikings. You want to have a viable backup that can take over the helm just in case J.J. McCarthy goes down with the injury or for whatever reason can't play. If you bring in a guy like Aaron Rodgers, I don't think Aaron Rodgers is coming in a Hall of Fame quarterback who still has a lot of left in the tank. I don't think he's coming back to sit behind J.J. McCarthy. So that's you start flirting with an Aaron Rodgers. That's a whole different dynamic. If you haven't heard my take on the whole Aaron Rodgers thing, look back at my last podcast. I dive deep into what I think is going to happen with Aaron Rodgers over the next couple of days. Let's talk about Milton Williams from the Eagles. That is my number one priority. This guy is a difference maker. He started in the Eagles playoff run in the Super Bowl as one of the top defensive tackles in free agency, and the Vikings are connected to him. According to Albert Beer, the market for him could push his cost to over $20 million annually, which may put him out of the Vikings' price range. I don't know if the Vikings want to spend that amount of money on Milton Williams. So that puts the Patriots and the Cardinals in place. And again, I do think the Vikings are in a better situation. I think the Vikings are a win-now team. The Patriots have to build. They got essentially a green quarterback in Drake May who played pretty well at the end of the season last year, but still, it's got a long way to go. And then the Cardinals are adding pieces to continue their rebuild. I just think the Minnesota Vikings are a better situation. The Falcons are releasing Grady Jarrett, it looks like. The Panthers have extended J.C. Horn. So there's a lot of stuff going on already with the free agency frenzy. And so I expect the Minnesota Vikings to be players in that. Unconventional Playbook is going to keep you up to date with what's going on with the Minnesota Vikings, who they're talking to, who they're signing, who they're releasing, whatever comes. Unconventional Playbook is going to be on top of it. Please hit that like and subscribe button. Please consider becoming a member. Those that become a member will be entered into a drawing to win a Minnesota Vikings Winter Warriors jersey. This has been Unconventional Playbook. It's Christmas time. It's free agency time. We will make sure to keep you up to date with what's going on with the purple. And as always, we will see you when we see you.